Good morning, good day, and good evening. Welcome to episode 181 of Tech of a Tea. Today, we have a returning guest. I think this is your third time here?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Welcome, Steve, maintainer of XeroLinux. How you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hey, I'm glad to be back. Third time's the charm, as they say.
It's not like
Maybe
the
this
last
time
time's
it's going to be
bad, so...
interesting.
Maybe this is the one that's going to be really terrible, and everything is just going to fall apart.
Hopefully not. Fingers
Hopefully not.
crossed.
So, I guess before we get into the main stuff, just briefly introduce who you are and what you do in case anyone haven't seen the previous episodes.
All right. I am the head maintainer of XeroLinux, a distribution that is very simple. It's just Arch with KDE, a custom version of KDE, making it simple and beautiful out of the box, and stays out of your way, giving you the space to shape it your way, as easy as possible. When we're talking about Arch, it cannot be that easy, as we have seen multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
So, but other than that, I maintain some packages from the AUR on my repositories, and yeah, I appear on YouTube whenever I can as a guest. My YouTube channel is currently on hiatus until further notice. I don't know when I'm going to bring it back. But other than that, yeah, that's who I am, and that's what I do.
Awesome. I didn't really know what you were going to say there. I think the last time you were on I think the GNOME version had just come out. Or was like just coming out?
Yeah, 0G. Yeah.
Mm-mm. I know we talked about XFC then as well. I don't know if that had just come out as well or what.
Yes, they both came out at the same time as bonus spins for
Mm.
those who are willing to donate for the ISOs. And I need to make it clear, because some people think that I'm charging for a FOSS project, and they don't like that. We'll be talking about that when we start talking about the Red Hat thing. But I am just charging for my time. The code is on GitHub. They can build those spins for free. It's just two commands in terminal. The only caveat is they have to be on an Arch-based distro or Arch itself,
Yeah.
because it uses the Arch repositories. And no, that doesn't mean Manjaro. If you are on Manjaro and you think you're on Arch, if you go to the Manjaro wiki, even they say they are not Arch. They are further away from Arch than other, like Debian from Ubuntu.
Mm.
So just be mindful of that. So don't try on Manjaro; you'll fail. But any other Arch-based distro, you can build on that. And recently, I did something that somebody called S-tier marketing.
Okay.
You know how XeroLinux people download XeroLinux because it looks good.
Sure.
Well, I made the rice available for anyone on an Arch-based distro and KDE to apply that rice, but it's not everything from XeroLinux. They can't convert. This will not convert their distro to XeroLinux.
Right.
But it's a small taste of what XeroLinux is. If you want the full experience, install XeroLinux. It's tier marketing.
Speaking of theming, you know what you should do? Here is here's the theme you have available for the XFCE version.
Brass monk. Okay, Windows 95.
Yep.
Is that Windows 95?
Yeah, it's Windows 95.
Yeah.
It's probably the
Yeah.
best looking Windows 95 theme I've actually seen. It looks ugly as hell, but like it's a good job.
To be honest, when I got my first PC, it was past Windows 95. I started my PC adventures on Windows 98, because before then I was on a Macintosh. For those who are from the 80s and 90s, the Mac 2VI, Macintosh 2VI. It was a 25 megahertz Macintosh with 75 megabyte hard drive. and I was able to push it as far as Mac OS 7.1.1. That's the last OS I installed on it, and that was in we kept using that computer until 98,
The
99.
introductory price was $3,000 US. What?
It was a company expense.
Yeah, which is 6,000 equivalent today. That is insane. And I forgot how much.
Yeah,
Like, obviously, people talk about how PC prices are going up and up and up. But, like, if you look back at some of these older systems, they were really expensive.
like since I'm a child of the 90s, I can tell you that laptops, if you went to a store, a brick and mortar store
Hmm.
or whatever, a computer store, and you wanted to buy a laptop, nothing was below $5,500.
Well, yeah, because they
Today
were a
you buy
business
laptops for
device.
1,000.
Like,
Yeah, well, considered business
sure.
devices, but not really.
Yeah,
Some people are buying them for
business guys
homes.
with a screen this big, you know?
But today, when you go to a store, you can find computer laptops for $400.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, come on, people, stop saying it's expensive. Go back to the 90s and see how much people needed to die, how many, and salaries back then were not as good as salaries today. So people had to save up to buy themselves a laptop or a desktop because they were like in the 5,000, 6,000, $7,000 range.
Well,
Count yourself lucky, people.
with
We
those
didn't
four,
have it as good back then.
with those $400 computers, I wouldn't even recommend buying them. The nice thing you have now is you have all of this legacy hardware that fits into these different price brackets. So you could spend $400 on a second-hand laptop and get something way nicer than, that like plastic junk that you're going to buy new at 400.
Yeah, or we still have those kind of people here who prefer to buy used
Yeah.
and for some reason here in Lebanon, uh, netbooks are still a thing.
Okay. Well, I guess.
Net netbooks, the small like
Yeah.
11-inch laptops that
Huh.
had non-existent performance. Basically, you could barely open a browser on these things.
Hmm. I guess.
Barely.
Netbooks were really weird. Like they've come and gone. Like again. Like they're sort of here
Multiple
with like
times.
the tablet. The tablets they sell with like a keyboard cover. In a sense, that's a netbook, but it's not like
Yeah.
what traditionally what like.
It's more the tablets today that look like netbooks are 10 times more powerful
Yeah.
than the
Yeah.
netbooks that were available back then. I'm like, why are netbooks still a thing over here?
I guess.
Because they're like $70, 80
Yeah, they're
bucks,
cheap. Yeah.
$100. I'm like, okay. And because here we are still suffering the economic crisis, we
Mhm.
haven't escaped it yet. Uh, People who used to get paid $400 a month now get paid 150.
Ah, lovely. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yes.
even public transportation, we used to pay $2 per. Our cabs here, our cab system is completely different than the rest of the world.
Okay.
Wherever you want to go, it's the same price. There are
Uh.
no counters in the cab, or it
Okay.
doesn't depend on the distance because they're called service. Service means they can pick up other people, drop them in other areas on the way, not only
Oh,
you.
so it's like a they treat it like a mini bus then.
Yeah, a minibus, kind of.
A very
So
very small
we
bus,
all
like 4 people in it.
yeah. So we used to pay $1, $2 max. Now it's like $15, 20 $20, or like even
Jeez.
public transportation is uh, unreachable these days.
Mhm.
So
I guess it makes sense
yeah,
why netbooks are still like seeing use then.
yeah, yeah. A lot of people prefer to buy used. They
Hmm.
don't care how badly used they are, as long as they can get a functional web browser, a
Right.
functional messaging system.
How
They don't play games.
functional like is a netbook nowadays? Like, are people still running the OS that came with it, or are they still running like really outdated browsers? Like,
No, here they have a system here
mm,
because well, Microsoft set its foot down
mm,
because back in the day, in the early 2000s, they were selling laptops, netbooks, desktops with pirated versions of
I'm
Windows.
not surprised. Any
So they
country that
discontinued
has
that.
like economic issues is selling pirated software. It's
Yeah.
just a basic rule. Might as well. What are they gonna do?
Well, yeah. They
Stop
thought that
selling it to
Microsoft
us?
was never. Yeah. They thought that Microsoft was never going to touch them.
Mm.
But Microsoft opened offices here, Microsoft Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
So they can no longer do that. So now they sell all their devices with no OS.
Okay.
Just call it. They call it when they put the line that says OS. Now they put DOS,
Hmm.
meaning no OS.
Huh. I
Just
kind of
not to say no OS, they say DOS.
wish they did that here. Like, I don't want to buy a laptop with Windows on it. I'm gonna just uninstall it anyway. Just give me the option.
Exactly. And I'm currently looking for the best Linux-friendly laptop
Mhm.
because you'll be surprised to know that I am currently, for my portable thing between here and the office downstairs, I'm using the Steam Deck with XeroLinux on an external SSD. Not touching. I didn't want to wipe SteamOS or
Right.
touch
Right.
SteamOS, and that's wonderful because Valve gave you the option to be able to put any OS of your choosing from an external drive without touching
Mhm.
SteamOS. If you want to tinker and whatever, that's called open source hardware. If this is the future we're going to, I'm happy.
Yeah, it would be. I'm really happy with what Valve's done with that device. Like,
Yeah,
I said it before. I know people are sick of hearing it. I want a Steam Deck. I know I can import it, but I really wish they would just sell it here. Like,
I had
it's
to
been
I
so
had to
long.
import mine.
Mm-hmm.
I had to import mine from Dubai, and I bought the 256 gig model. It was like $580 in
Mm-hmm.
Dubai. Arrived here, I ended up paying a total of $700.
Jeez.
But anyway, I have XeroLinux there, and might I add that XeroLinux is running 40% faster than SteamOS desktop mode. Don't ask me why or how. I just installed XeroLinux. I didn't optimize XeroLinux for the Steam Deck. I just installed it, and it's running 40% faster.
Are you seeing battery issues? Because I could imagine that the
I'm not running it on battery. It's always plugged in.
right. My assumption is Valve is doing some performance tweaking to get better battery life. That would be the
With their
best
kernel,
thing I
with
could
their
see.
custom kernel.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
think that it's running. People think at first I thought that it was running an old kernel, being the number 515.
Mhm.
But it's 515 with a lot of the current kernel features backported to it.
Right, right.
So if it says a lower number, doesn't necessarily mean
Is
it's outdated.
is 515 LTS kernel?
Yes,
Yeah, that's why.
yes. And they're backporting all the tweaks from the 6 series to it,
Mhm.
whatever they need, basically. But for some reason, it's running better on XeroLinux on desktop mode, but XeroLinux on the Steam Deck comes with its own caveats. There's
Mm.
no virtual keyboard. There's no controller configuration support. There's no. I don't care for all these because I'm using it as a desktop
Yeah, you just plug a keyboard
replacement,
and
not
mouse
as a
in.
gaming. If I want all the Steam features, I just unplug the XeroLinux drive and boot into SteamOS. So, and I don't use the touchscreen because there's a mouse and keyboard connected to it, and I'm connecting it to dual monitors, and it's handling dual monitors, no problem.
Wait, so with
So
your swapping between the OSs, is there no like have you not set it up to properly like dual boot? We can just swap between them like in the bootloader. Do you actually like manually swap between them?
I set the external drive to be the default, so it
Okay.
boots off of
Yeah.
Zero
Okay.
Linux
Okay.
drive,
That's what I was.
which has Grub, and then I select. But for some reason, it's showing SteamOS twice
Huh.
in Grub. That is strange. I don't understand it. But and by installing XeroLinux, by using XeroLinux on the Steam Deck, I discovered that hmm, Steam is using ButterFS with subvolume.
Hmm. That's
I'm
cool.
like, that is good. This is because it's immutable and it needs to take snapshots and stuff like that. So it's logical for them to use BTRFS.
Mm-mm.
So I'm like, okay, you're using BTRFS, but I use XFS. So, and we'll get into what happened with XFS and Grub in a minute.
Well, we can get into it now if you want to. I'm perfectly happy with that.
I want to ask you first
Okay.
something first, because
Okay.
I want to give you something to say, because I don't want to be talking all the time. I get yelled at for talking too much.
That's fine.
Oh.
Talk as much as you want. It means I don't have to talk.
I want to ask you something. Have you ever followed the happenings and the goings on in the grub realm, or you just, as long as it works, you don't care?
The last time I got involved in that space was the last Arch issue we had, where Arch, what was the details then? Arch wasn't reloading the grub config or something like that, and that caused certain systems to not be able to boot. I can't remember the exact details. It was like a
September issue.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
September issue.
I don't remember the full details,
Well,
but yeah, that's the last time I got involved with it.
That's the day they switched from stable to Git.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now there's a new issue.
Mm-hmm.
That happens mostly to XFS users.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes happens to BTRFS users, but mostly it happens to XFS users, where if you select XFS and you install Arch Linux, not Arch Linux, any distro that uses Calamares, basically.
Mm-hmm.
If you select XFS and you try after the install is done and you try to reboot, you will get a blank Grub rescue screen.
Okay.
It's something to do with a kernel parameter and latest 4 releases of Grub, which have the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Anything beyond R499,
Mm-hmm.
2.06 R499, because now we're at 2.12 RC1. So if you're using XFS, Grub would be those versions of Grub would be built against the old version of XFS progs, which causes it not to detect, because when if you're installing a distro
sorry,
with
before you keep
Calamares,
going on, is this the issue that you're talking about? I just sent it on the Discord.
yes,
Yep. Okay. Cool.
exactly. So if you install an Arch-based distro with Calamares and using XFS, it will create boot on the and you select auto partitioning, of course. It will put /boot on an XFS partition,
Okay.
making Grub unable to read the /boot.
Okay.
Because Grub and XFS not very good friends. So in this case, I realized that when I installed Arch with the Arch install script, there's a kernel parameter now that says XFS type equals, FS type, root FS type equals XFS. That's a kernel parameter that you need to add to the grub config. Then it will have no issues booting.
Right.
So it's a bunch of issues. I reported it upstream. I even created 2 ISOs, one with a patched grub. So me and Philip from Manjaro, Philip from Manjaro mainly, built a version of Grub with that faulty commit removed. He used git bisect to figure out which commit is faulty and then remove it and build the latest version. So I built an ISO with the patched Grub and an ISO with the default Grub, sent it upstream to Oracle, to the developers of Grub. So far, all I got was a reply saying, "Thank you for the report." And that was on the 13th. Nothing ever since. They haven't fixed it. They released 4 versions after that, still broken. So XeroLinux has done something that users hate, but we have no choice. We held back the Grub on our repos. Unfortunately, that's the only solution for now. Stick to what works. Why move away? Especially that Grub is in release candidate -git that whatever, which shouldn't be the case. It should be stable and only stable. I'm waiting for 2.12 stable and and if it works, I'm gonna stick XeroLinux on that until the next stable release. I'm no longer gonna ship the Git releases that Arch keeps throwing down our throat. Best solution. It worked, and today, as we talked previously on various podcasts, that today, because of what Arch is going through, Manjaro's holding back of packages are looking great.
Well, you know, you can also just not
I
use
haven't
XFS.
encountered any of those issues on Manjaro because they hold back the packages. They're smart.
You can also just not use XFS. That's another option.
Well, I did drop XFS to, instead of being default, now it's the last option.
Okay, what's the default now? Is
Because
that
I don't want
Butterfs or
the
XT?
default is ext4.
Okay, right.
I'm not gonna put Butterfs as default because I don't know how to use it, I don't understand it, and I don't care for it. But users can select it as the second choice.
Well, wait. So why
What
did you have it as the default before then?
you're gonna laugh.
Okay.
And you're gonna have a lot of people weird comments.
Sure. Okay. That's nothing new.
I only did that at first. I only did that because Nitrix OS set it as default. I was like, it's a known distro. They set it as default. What? I can't tie.
Mhm.
Then I discovered real reason why one should set it as default. Because XFS, when you copy large files, it doesn't cache anything. It just does a raw copy. So there's no CPU overhead or memory overhead. So it doesn't use up your memory nor your CPU. Your CPU will be chilling at 10%, 15%. Whereas if you are using ext4, if you are copying large files or a large number of small files, your CPU will be used at 70%, 60%,
okay. Yeah,
80%.
Yeah, I've cloned an entire 2 terabyte drive before. I'm very well aware of this issue. Did he freeze? Did I lose him? I think I lost him. Yeah, oh! He's gone.
Did I disappear?
You did disappear. Welcome back.
Oh, sorry. It's my iPhone for some reason. It disconnected.
Oh, okay. Sure, that's not at all what I expected it to be, but sure.
It happens. So where was I?
I was saying. So you were saying how ext4 causes massive CPU usage when you copy a lot of files.
Massive CPU usage, especially when you're copying over network as well. It will get your CPU up in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah,
up there.
Yeah, and I was saying
with
that
XFS.
I was saying that I've cloned an entire 2 terabyte drive before, and that I've definitely seen that before.
Yeah, so that's the reason now I use XFS, and I will not move away from it because I copy a lot of large files. Movies.
So you should have just said ISOs.
That I have definitely legally ripped.
Yep.
And no, mostly it's ISOs and a lot of a large number of small files, especially repo, Git repo files that I back up on my NAS. Because God knows if that SSD dies, XeroLinux will go bye-bye. Although I have them on GitHub, but I'd like to have another copy locally.
Right.
So I do a lot of copies. So I don't need my CPU to be stuck at and as I call it, pegged. And a lot of people like to joke about pegged, but that's the expression we use, pegged at 70%.
No, that's a normal expression. They've just been on the internet
just
way
trolling.
too long. They just need to go outside and touch some grass. They've been on the internet too long.
Yeah. So that's why I use XFS. I don't need the features of Butterfs. I don't do snapshots and all that because I am the distro maintainer. I know how to use my distro. I know how to troubleshoot things, even if the system is unbootable. I know how to arch root, get the system bootable again. It's part of the muscle memory now. Arch root needs to become muscle memory with everyone that uses Arch. This is your only rescue. If you don't know how to do that, you shouldn't be using Arch. So, yeah, XFS use
read a wiki every time something goes wrong.
Well, it's not wrong to go to the Arch Wiki when it's something unrelated to
Mhm.
Grub or booting issues, but for Grub, I mainly do Arch to root, reinstall Grub, done deal, it works.
Yeah, yeah.
And I install Grub differently than other users. I add the dash dash removable flag
Okay.
because I have a tray where I replace a drive with another. I have XeroLinux, I mean 0G on this drive. So
Mhm.
if I want to boot from this, I don't dual boot on the thing. I just remove the SSD that has the main
Yeah.
XeroLinux. I
That's the
put this
correct way to
one
do it.
exactly. Don't. But if you have a laptop, that's a little bit hard.
I've seen so many forum posts. People like, oh, I deleted my entire drive when I tried to set up dual booting. I bricked my system. Stop it. Just use, if you have the option, use 2 separate drives and just swap them in the BIOS. That is all you need to do. Don't try to dual
or
boot. Don't do it. It's
or
dumb.
or swap them physically.
Yeah, or do that. If you got an easy
This
way
is,
to swap them, then go ahead and do that. I actually
and that
when I was
and
dual booting
that
with oh sorry.
sorry, keep talking. But the that bay was recommended to me by a friend. I
Mhm.
wouldn't have thought about it. A friend of mine, he was like, I have so many drives. I don't want them internal. I like to swap between them because there's mainly storage drives.
Mhm.
I said, okay, I'll buy the cheapest one.
Mhm.
I found one for like $30. It has 2.5, one for 2.5-inch drives and one for 3.5.
Wait, so is
So
this
I
like an
have
external
one.
bay you have?
I'll send you the link to
Yeah,
show it
okay.
if you
I'll
want.
have a look at it.
I keep it. I keep it because I might want to buy another one
Okay, cool.
uh, if it still exists. If it's dead, it's dead.
It's fine if it is. When I
It,
here it is. Wait, am I gonna dox myself? Maybe. Let's
it
not show.
it's
Can I show the screen without showing my address? I'm gonna, we'll look at the picture. Yeah, we'll do that. That's a much safer option.
yeah, just a picture. That's what matters.
Yeah.
Uh, it's very neat. The upper drive is the boot drive.
Mm.
The lower the 3.5 drive is a spinning Rust of that has the Linux storage. I mean, I throw everything back up.
Mm-hmm.
I if I want before I reinstall XeroLinux, I do a time shift backup. I put it on that 3.5-inch spinning Rust, and that spinning Rust is over 12 years old. I'll keep using it until it's dead. It's only it's 500 gigs. It's still working. And those are so cheap these days, I can buy another one.
Yeah, like, can you even buy a
So
500 gig hard drive at this point? I don't even know.
there, I think, yeah, you can. You can. It's 500 and above. The 250, they're all
Oh,
dead.
yeah, actually, maybe it's a bit different for what's in your market. Let's go my area. Let's go
They're mostly Seagates. Mostly Seagate.
yeah, my local seller doesn't even sell them anymore.
Here they still sell the 500 gigs, and they're old Seagate 7200 RPM, not the Barracuda
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Firecuda and whatever. No, it's the old, with the white label,
Mm.
white label
Oh,
drives.
so it's
Yeah,
okay. It's old stock then, right?
old stock.
I
Yeah,
can't imagine anyone still making 500 gig drives. Surely not.
it's 12 years old. It's still running. It's one of those slim ones that don't make any noise and
Mhm,
they don't they don't rattle.
mhm.
So it's fine as long as it's working. It's just for time shift. I don't put anything important on it.
Mhm.
If time shift, if this drive dies, I can put time shift on another drive. I've got like 7 drives in this system, so no issues there. But this hardware thing, this bay, is really important
Mhm.
for distro hoppers especially.
Mm.
So if you want to be a distro hop, use something like this. Don't affect your internal drives. I have a Windows 11 install that has survived me reinstalling Linux 1,000 times because it's on a separate NVMe on the board
Yep.
that's completely disabled.
Yeah,
Only I enable it when I need to boot.
stop doing this petition thing. Petition, no, stop it. Bad. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Only petition if
The
you're going to be using the only ever petition a blank drive that has nothing else on it or only data that you are happy to lose. Don't try to don't resize petitions. Stop it. That's stupid. You're going to cause yourself a lot of pain.
There are some people who partition their drives and install multiple distros
I'm
plus
aware.
Windows.
That's who I'm talking about. Stop doing that. It's done. Like I get it on a laptop, but if you're using a desktop, just please do something else. Anything. Like install it on a thumb drive. Like that's better than what you're trying to do.
Some people do install it on the thumb drive, but boot times are hella hellish.
I'm sure they're terrible. You didn't watch. So you're saying before that you didn't watch the full Big Pot episode. Did you get to the bit where he talked about his terrifying data scheme? And
No,
I
didn't.
His main data drive is an NTFS drive that he shares between
Oh,
Windows
yeah,
and Linux.
He keeps mentioning that on the DT cast. Yes.
Of course he does.
Yeah, and C# is the best language. Yes.
It's fine. The following episode after I had him on, I had Jeremy Soller on, and half the time he was like, Rust is the best language. Like, okay.
Speaking of Rust, I sent you a video a while ago to see the internal combustion of the people within Rust from within. Like ages ago, you said you were going to look at it, but you never did. I was wondering why. I didn't want to push the subject.
Rust. Oh, yeah, you did send that one.
Yeah, Rust is being destroyed from the inside.
Was that when all the Rust drama was happening? What was the context there? I don't recall.
So, yeah, where there's a lot of corporations behind Rust, and it's becoming a conglomerate and whatever. So they forked it into multiple versions. One of them is called Crab something.
Yeah, I did hear about Crablang. I think is what they called
Crablang. Yeah, it was forked into Crablang. It's Rust without all the corporate bullshit. So it's an interesting video you should make. Nobody, there's only this guy who made this video, so that'll be interesting because, okay, although Rust is a good language to use, be careful where you get it from, because there's a lot of people who there's a lot of forks that pretend to be something they're not. They say we are Rust without the corporate bullshit, but in the end, you discover that it's with opinionated and very negative people.
Right.
So you have to be careful which one you choose, but unfortunately, even Rust is becoming fragmented. So if we're talking about Linux being fragmented, look at everything within Linux. If Linux as a whole is fragmented, everything within it is starting to become fragmented.
I don't know how fragmented you can really call Rust at this stage. Like, I'm
not really.
I'm not super up on like what's happening, but like, is Crablang like a popular fork that people are making, or is it just...
There's multiple. There's Crablang. There's Fishlang. Whatever. There's multiple names. I forgot the names. But it's not as fragmented as Arch yet. But it's on the way.
Sure.
It started with like 3 or 4 forks right now. It's gonna keep growing and growing because each group has their own ideology of what Rust should be and how it should function, and that's sad to see in Linux. People keep saying Linux is not fragmented. The more choice, the better. My mentality in XeroLinux is use Hicks' law. Less is better. Just unify your ideas, share. But unfortunately, that's not being done. Everybody. Like, I talked about a recent experience that happened to me 9 times. It's too many times for comfort. Where I go, I want to do one thing on XeroLinux. I want to include one thing. And since I'm not a developer, sorry, DT, I stole your tagline. I'm not a developer. He's going to make T-shirts out of them. So since I'm not a developer, I go look for projects to fork and work off of. And I check the license first, because you always have to check the license. GPL v3, okay, fork, do whatever you want, ship it. 9 times so far, I did it like 100 times, but 9 times out of 100, not 100 times, I did it 50 times, but 9 times out of 50, I got people, the creators of the project, coming at me, yelling at me, who allowed you to take our code, fork our code and use it? I was like, you did. Your license did. The GPL license they shoved on your project allowed me to do that. They were like, no, we thought we only added a license because GitHub requested we add a license. I'm like, did you read the license? No, we just selected the first one available.
Honestly, GitHub, like, there's probably an option in there for some sort of like a source available license, but it really should be a bit higher on the list. And it should be clear, like, maybe that, like, before you even make a repo, it's like, do you want this to be source available or open source? And give you a clear definition of like the two differences. Because I don't have an issue if someone wants to be source available. Like, I think like that's stupid. You should just make it open source. But like, you have the right to make the code source available. But like, don't complain if you wanted it to be that and then you gave it the wrong license. You're like, oh well, like, stop it, stop it. You have a license.
Even if they did, the problem is nobody reads.
Oh,
Nobody
no.
bothers to read.
No, unless you're
license
unless you're like a big corporate project, like what, like, are you gonna like sue some random like 3-star project on GitHub? Like,
one of the people who came at me, he was like, I'm gonna sue you till your last penny because you're trying to steal my project. And he had a and that person had no license on their GitHub. Zero license.
In that case, that's like, the no license thing is a weird one, because I've said before that I don't think GitHub should allow you to make a public repo that you have no license on. Like, maybe that's an unpopular opinion, but because no license effectively means you've made it source available, but it's not clear that that's your intention.
No license right now is looked at like, I can do whatever I want. I can rename it. I can take credit. I can do whatever I want.
You'd have to ask a lawyer exactly how it would be handled, but you could go with either approach, either public domain or source available, and I think both are probably reasonable interpretations, but I'm not knowledgeable enough on law to really say.
I did a little bit of digging. I took example from you because one should do one's research. So I did a little bit of digging. Lawyers, if you involve lawyers in a no license situation, they will not touch it.
Right.
They will not touch it because it's on you. You didn't put a license.
Right.
Fuck you.
Right.
Sorry. But it's like, you should be responsible for for your own actions. So he threatened to sue. He was like, I want to sue you. I'm gonna get the best lawyers on the case because you're trying to steal my project. I just didn't want anything to do with it. I just deleted it.
You know what you should do?
Didn't want to go.
Send him the coordinates of the capital of Lebanon, and be like, why do you tell me that? Like, that's where I am. Do you want to try to do an international lawsuit?
The most costly one. But yeah, this is what's happening currently in the FOSS world. They tell you, okay, here's this GPL 3.3 license, fork it and use it. But they don't really mean that. They just blindly select whatever license is the first choice on GitHub or GitLab and call it a day. They don't really mean anything. And people are not very friendly. The masses are silent right now. So the negative people are being heard louder.
Right.
So the people in the good area of Linux are silent right now. They're doing what they're doing. They're working on whatever they're working on. And the negative people are screaming louder and they're being heard louder. So I'm not really happy with what's going on, especially which transitions very well into the Red Hat debacle.
Well, before we get to that, like, I can't say I've seen anyone being like that aggressive when it comes to like project licensing. But
you're not a distro maintainer.
Yeah, I'm not a
distro maintainer.
I coming in from the perspective of a user who's just messing around with his code, like, but
what?
I don't like.
You're lucky enough to be in contact with a lot of good people, like Buxry and the people from what's it called? The big 16 gig ISO. What's it called? You had one of the developers of that. I forgot the name of it. But the educational one, The
Oh,
educational distro.
why am I blanking on the name now? Not what? Oh, give me a sec.
You had one of
Why
the
am I?
GNOME.
I don't know why I'm blanking on the name. What is the project called? Endless OS. I was gonna say Elementary,
And
but no, I always get those names confused. Endless OS.
yeah, Endless OS. Yes, you are in contact with these people.
Mhm.
But being a distro maintainer, I am in contact with. I go deep down into the belly of the beast,
Mhm.
aka the Arch forums, aka the Gen 2 places, the ugliest part uh, of the things. So I do see negativity a lot. Like,
Mhm.
we can help you, but we don't wanna. We can help you, but we don't wanna.
I think when it comes to places like the Arch forum and the Gen 2 forum, they are
Or the
very
Gen 2 IRC.
or
IRC.
Gen 2 IRC. Yeah, sure. Um, it's not that people aren't willing to help. It's that a lot of people are not willing to deal with people who are not going to put the effort in to help themselves. Like a recent example was with the Python virtual environment situation. So
Mm.
when that change came in, for anyone who doesn't know, on Arch, Debian, Ubuntu, and a couple of other distros, you now can't use pip to install packages globally. It'll give you a warning saying that the global environment is managed externally. When this came in for Ubuntu, there was a lot of comments on Ask Ubuntu, Stack Overflow, and a bunch of other places where people were posting the entire error message saying, what does this mean? Now, if you read the error message, it tells you command for command what you need to do. These people had not read the error message. They just saw an error message and then posted it. Now, a lot of people were given advice on how to fix. Now, some of that advice was really bad, like delete the error message or like use dash dash break system packages, both of which are really bad ideas. But in the context of Arch, you're expected to at least do that like minimal effort of like reading that error message and going through what it says there. And in the Arch case, it actually gives you a bit more information, telling you the package name you need to install to get pipx available. I think it's like python-pipx or something like that.
Yeah.
So on Arch, you're sort of more expected to have gone through those steps yourself. It's when those people come from a distro like Ubuntu and then expect that same level of support when they're not willing to put in the effort themselves. Now, I'm sure there are absolutely people that are, just assholes for the sake of being assholes, but and maybe those people stand out a lot as well because, they are the negative people. But at least from what I've seen, like I've dug through mailing lists upon mailing lists, forums upon forums. Most people seem to be positive, but there are definitely going to be those bad apples.
The bad apples mostly tell you if you don't know how to how to use Python, just don't use it.
Sure, yeah. No, that definitely.
Or other people would say, if you don't know how to use Python, don't use a distro that uses Python.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
So
don't install Linux.
Don't install Linux. So, but in the case of Python, we all had to discover it ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why the motto and the catchphrase of XeroLinux is where learning is the norm
Mm-hmm.
and self-reliance is king. This is what you're supposed to do on Arch Linux and any Arch-based distro.
I didn't know you had a
Don't
motto.
come here expecting Arch Linux or any Arch-based distro to be like Ubuntu, holding your hand every step of the way. We do our best to add options, like XeroLinux created a script. I did create the script where you have troubleshooting area, like for example, restart Pipewire and Pipewire Pulse, because that issues happen a lot with Pipewire, as we all know.
Yep, I'm well aware.
So instead of running the command, asking the user to run the command, it's just open the script, select option number 5. It will do it for you.
Yep.
For Grub, same thing. Downgrade command that will run downgrade and import the new pacman.conf, which has the repo where we're holding back the package, and so on and so forth. So many troubleshooting features have been added to XeroLinux as a script. And the reason I do it as a script is because I want users to see what's happening to their system, to learn from what's happening in the system, not because I want to. Because a lot of people tell me, why don't you hide the terminal? Why don't you make it completely invisible? I was like, that's not the point. The point is I want users to see what's going on to their system. Maybe they will learn a thing or two. Anyway, so we do our best, but we cannot hold your hand every step of the way. Like when it comes to laptops, some people in India, for example, they buy laptops of questionable branding, like Infinix, Ifix, and whatever, with proprietary Wi-Fi chips that were low-budget Wi-Fi chips that won't work on Linux. Or in the case of ROG, you buy the two-in-ones. Well, Linux isn't built for two-in-ones yet, as far as I know. So you will have to finagle your way to get it. Maybe there's a distro out there that works. I don't know, because they accept the existence of two-in-ones. I don't know, but as far as Arch Linux, it's all granular. You have to do everything manually yourself. You have to add support yourself. There is support maybe, but it's not built into Arch. Arch is a system you build yourself. That's the point of Arch. That's the whole point of Arch. You build it yourself. They give you the base, and then you start building block by block your system until it starts functioning the way you want. That's the point of XeroLinux. We go by the Arch philosophy. We give you a good-looking desktop, so you don't have to do the desktop part, but everything else is up to you to shape. Because if I select an option, I say, okay, XeroLinux uses SE Linux. XeroLinux uses Unbox. XeroLinux does that. They will be forced to use these things or forced to start uninstalling stuff. We go by the Arch philosophy. Have a base system, then build upon that. Build everything upon that. So XeroLinux, I'm happy to say, has reached its potential for me. There will be small things being added here and there, tweaks and whatever, but it's done. It's a desktop environment that you can shape I'll keep fixing issues and adding fixes from time to time. That's it.
Yep.
But now I want to talk about the whole Red Hat thing.
One last thing. We'll get with that just a moment, okay? One last thing. On the topic of two-in-ones, there are a couple. I just was doing a quick search. There are a couple that do work quite nicely. Apparently, the HP X360 and Lenovo Yoga 9, they have styluses as well, and they're treated like a Wacom tablet, and they work just fine.
Yeah, you said Lenovo. Lenovo is very friendly with Linux, but
I don't know as like a general thing, but those two devices, it seem like they're good. Yeah, HP.
HP has never been great with Linux, except minus.
Apparently, this one device is. Yeah, apparently people are saying the X360 is a really great device on Linux.
No Asus laptop. So.
Not that I'm seeing on this list. Wait, no, I see someone mention the ROG Flow.
Maybe. Okay, but speaking of the ROG, there's a community out there called the ROG Linux community. That's rog-linux.org if you wanna go there.
Okay.
It's the link is included in my tool.
Do you mean asus-linux.org?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You said ROG.
Linux.
Yeah.
I said ROG. Sorry. It's asus-linux.org. They have a Discord as well.
Okay.
Their only thing in life is to add support to ROG laptops. When it comes to fan control, they have their own application to control the fans, RGB, control the CPU, everything to have better battery life and so on and so forth. Their only job is for ROG laptops. So maybe users can find something related to ROG 2-in-1s over there. I don't know. I just added the links to my tool. Point the way.
This is wow. There's a lot of documentation here. This is kind of impressive.
This is really impressive, and someone pointed me to it ages ago. But their Discord, they're very friendly. There's very few bad apples over there, but most of them are really positive. I love communities like that. Why isn't aren't there more and more communities like that? Like, oh, Linux, please make me happy. Enjoy to use Linux because a lot of people come to me. They're like, I wanted to use Linux,
Mhm.
but nobody's willing to help.
Right.
They expect me to do everything on my own. I'm like,
Well, nowadays we don't really
don't.
have like Linux user groups like we would have, 10, 15 years ago. So a lot of the stuff is like online communities, and online communities tend to get very, very nichey and tend to get like
And
very
when you ask,
in-groupy.
yeah, and when you ask for support, they tell you, they expect you to have a minimum knowledge of
Yeah.
Linux. Like, I do too, but because I am an Arch-based distro,
Mhm.
I'm like, I expect users to come to an Arch-based distro having a minimum amount of Linux knowledge. But
Right.
if they're going to Debian or Mint or whatever, Debian is not really a beginner
No,
distro
definitely not
unless you
Debian.
do, because unless you just use it as is, which is I don't know how you would use it as is.
But like
There's
Mint and
nothing in it.
Ubuntu, definitely.
Mint and Ubuntu, Mint and Ubuntu. If they're using that, yes, this is what they should be.
Mhm.
But coming immediately to Arch, this is the wrong thing to do. I say it. I minimize the paragraph on my website, and I'm
Mhm.
working on a new website, by the way. But I minimized the paragraph. Now it's a couple of sentences. It tells them if you have zero knowledge about Linux, don't use XeroLinux.
Mhm.
It's Arch based. I'm not gonna be there to help you for your stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, I keep repeating the same stuff every episode. So um, I really want to get into the nitty gritty
Yeah,
of the Red Hat
we'll
stuff,
talk about the Red Hat stuff. I know I keep sending you different directions. We'll talk about it.
but because I have a different point of view
Mhm.
than a lot of people. My point of view is they are correct to do what they are doing
Mhm.
to a certain degree. The way they are doing it is a little bit questionable. I'm not talking about the way they're doing it. I'm
Mhm.
talking about the action itself.
Okay.
Monetizing or putting support and some of the server code behind the paywall, sort of a paywall. It's not really 100% paywall. It's a weird one. I don't
Mhm.
know what to call it.
Well, there is
But
the free developer license, so you can still access the code. What they are
yeah,
restricting is the distribution of the code through the use of that
yeah.
license.
But a lot of distributions owe a lot to Red Hat.
Mhm.
Without Red Hat, for example, desktop environments wouldn't have existed. They created the XDG portals. They created the half
I
everything.
wouldn't say they wouldn't exist. They wouldn't exist in the state they're
Is it
in.
in the state they're in? I should have phrased
GNOME
it better.
definitely wouldn't be like as functional as it is today without Red Hat.
Yeah, they owe a lot to Red Hat. And on the desktop front, desktop environment front, and end user, like regular user,
Mhm.
from their perspective, they're not going to be affected. Why are they yelling and screaming with pitchforks and everything? If they're just yelling at the way Red Hat is going about it, I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of them. They're just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Mhm.
They just want to spread hate and okay, it's affecting the free open source world in a certain the ideology in a
Mhm.
certain way, but it's not really affecting it.
Mhm.
It's not really causing desktop environments to die. It's not causing applications to die. It's not causing anything.
Mhm.
It's just on the server front, yes, this, but we're not talking about the server front. The server front is for the server people, for
Mhm.
the people who got, and in this on the server front, they have money, so they can afford to pay a license. So okay, they don't want to, but that's up to them.
Mhm.
Why should we hate for the server people? It's not affecting us in the end. Why
Mhm.
should we hate something that's not affecting us? That's my whole argument.
Well, I think one part you're forgetting about is a lot of people in the desktop space are also people in the server space as well. Like there is definitely that overlap between those people. So there is definitely a lot of people who are being directly affected by this. Also, when we're talking about licenses, when we're talking like, a big company, like a Google, for example, like if they have to pay some license fees, it doesn't matter, whatever. They're going to make their own thing anyway. I think they have an internal version of Ubuntu. That was a bad example. Take like some mid-tier company. They have like, 100 employees. They have to pay for a license. Like that, makes sense. They can afford it. But there are a lot of cases where you have like educational usage. You have more like small scale companies that are just starting up where maybe they can't actually afford those license fees, but they can still get value out of the system that's being provided here. Now, you could say, well, maybe they should just go and use Debian, but up until, a couple of years ago, you had CentOS available, and then up until very recently, you also had Alma Linux and Rocky Linux operating as a spiritual successor of what CentOS was. Do they need to be on something that is one-to-one compatible with RHEL? That's something I can't say. That's something that is dependent on their specific business case. Maybe a lot of these systems would be perfectly fine on CentOS Stream or some other distro out there. I think the major issue comes down to the fact that it seems really disingenuous from Red Hat that they cannot keep providing, they couldn't keep providing CentOS, they can't keep providing to Alma Linux and Rocky Linux in the same form they've been doing because it's not sustainable. Where since the beginning of the company, they have operated under this model and they've become this massively successful business. It's just out of nowhere, all of a sudden, that this model is just now no longer sustainable. And that, I think, is where people get a little bit weird about it and think, there's clearly, like, more to it than just, like, oh, it's not sustainable now. Like, that's not what's happening. Like, you've been successful up until now, so, like, at least be honest about it.
The way I look at it is they've been giving when it comes to desktop and end user stuff without asking in return, and other distributions making money off of their backs. It's a similar situation I suffered on XeroLinux, but this is nor here nor there. But they're making money off of Red Hat's backs, and Red Hat was like, we need to put an end to this. They're taking bug for bug copies of our code, and they're making money off of it. We need to start doing something about it. We need to limit that kind of behavior. So maybe they studied and they did research. They did some thinking and whatever, and then they saw no other way to do it but to put a donation, or a paywall thing in front of it to stop people making money off of their backs. The way they went about it, yes, is a kind of weird, kind of janky, kind of not user friendly. Just one day they just told people, hey, it's not sustainable. Yes, I agree.
I think the other big thing with that, sorry for cutting you off, I think the other big thing is that they're just saying, we're stopping, like, now. It's not like, you have until the next version, you have until this day. It's like, we're done now, go away. Like, that's, I think, the really big thing. Same with what happened with CentOS. When they pulled everything, like, out from under CentOS, like, people were in the middle of migrating systems at that point. Like, if you give people a deprecation period, which Red Hat is generally really good with, like, I think, Xorg is marked for deprecation in Red Hat. And I think the deprecation date is like 2025 or something ridiculous. Like, that gives people a lot of time to work out what they're going to do, move systems around, maybe start paying for a license or migrate to something else. But when you just say out of the blue, hey, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, all the people that are using it, no, stop. Like, they're allowed to do that. Don't get me wrong. They are absolutely allowed to do it.
Not that way. But not that way. They have to give... Everything has a certain period. Like, when you quit your job, you have to give a 30-day prior notice.
They don't have to give you prior notice if you're in the US. They can just fire you.
No, I'm
I
not
don't know
talking
what
about
Lebanon's like, but in here we needed they need to give like a notice if they're gonna fire you. But yeah, some place in the US they can just be like, no, go away, don't come in tomorrow.
no, I'm talking about if you want to quit your
Sure,
job,
sure. Yeah, no.
you have to give 30 days prior notice to the company saying, "Yeah, I'm leaving." They tell you, "Okay, you have to stay here without pay for 30 days."
Oh,
So
that's definitely
it's
not a thing here. That's no, they still keep paying you until last day. But they
oh
just don't pay.
well
That's crazy.
in Lebanon, no. In Lebanon, you have to give 30 days prior notice, but they don't pay you for the last month.
Jeez.
Just work for free for 30 days. In Europe, when I worked for Apple in Ireland, Southern Ireland, the European part of Ireland,
Mhm.
the good part of Ireland, sorry, uh, they paid me until the last day.
Yeah, yeah.
And plus, the best part of working for Apple is I worked for 8 months,
Mhm.
and then for 3 months, I was down and out for depression and whatever. But I wasn't working. I was getting paid full salary for not working, and I had 20 or I don't know however many therapist sessions free of charge on Apple.
Jesus.
So I was like, cool, I guess.
Mhm.
And then I got the hell out of Dodge. I came back to Lebanon.
Mhm.
But because of the explosion in 2021,
Yeah, yeah.
the thing. But anyway, uh, so yes, Red Hat is doing something not wrong, but the way they're doing it is wrong. Is
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of iffy, and I don't like it. Not a lot of, and that's where people are yelling, maybe. But there are places where people are saying, "Hey, it's the end of free open source, and it's free open source is dead." No, it's not dead. It's come on,
Mhm.
like okay, there's one guy who on Discord who told me what Red Hat did might trickle down to desktop environments who will feel the same way and start putting their projects behind paywall because
Mhm.
Red Hat did it. Why can't they?
Hmm.
He just said don't be surprised if one day some like GNOME, for example, he was using it just as an example. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but imagine GNOME did the same thing. One
Mhm.
day they decided you want to use GNOME, fork money.
Mhm.
So maybe he's right. We don't know. We cannot judge the future because it hasn't happened yet.
Well,
So
I think that's a little bit different. Like, because okay, if wait, where am I going with this? Wait, let me think this one through. So
Control Alt Delete. Control Alt Delete your brain.
in the Red Hat case, the issue was people taking the code base and then just rebuilding it as their own separate product. Whereas the way that a desktop environment is distributed is the code is there and then distros distribute it as GNOME. Like this is just a build of GNOME. It's not like this is Arch Linux GNOME. This is, this is whatever name you want to call it. Like the distros are just shipping it like as is, giving direct credit to the project, not trying to directly
Yeah.
monetize it for their own income.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying GNOME themselves.
Sure,
Is
sure.
what the guy meant. I think what the guy meant was if GNOME themselves decide to ask distro maintainers for money to include GNOME in their distribution.
Mm-hmm. I think that would just
Basic.
like maybe if a pro like GNOME tried it, but anything smaller scale than that would just kill a project.
Yeah, but
It,
he was just using it as an example. He was just
yeah. No,
not saying it's.
like
Uh,
let's imagine like okay, let's just go like full on with it. Like let's say, the Linux kernel was like, hey, charge us to include the Linux kernel in your distro. Like I think obviously like that's a ridiculous example, but you could go smaller scale, you could say GIMP, you could say Critter, you could say, whatever project you want to go with. I think the backlash a project would get from that is to the point where you actually would see a viable fork happen, because it's not like any project is a monolith, especially a project like this where like most projects are community managed, so it's not like there is a company where everyone has to toe the company line. You would have people who are like very, very well versed in the code base who are like, this is just not gonna happen, and actually like try to operate a proper full. Like going back to the, I think what, like 2005, 2006, you had when X386 decided they wanted to change their license to be incompatible with the GPL. That caused this massive loss of developers who shifted over to go and start a new project called Xorg. And I could see if a project of like large enough scale tried that, that's pretty much what would end up happening. Now, not a guarantee. Like, it's very possible he would just like no and just stop shipping the package and the project dies. But I don't see a system, unless it became like socially acceptable to start charging for packages at like a smaller scale, like some text editors start doing it and then slowly building up from there. That's the only way I could see that really possibly happening. If it happened from like the big project down, that would cause way too much of an outrage for anybody to think it's socially acceptable to try it.
Yeah, it's just a how should I put it? It's just the the dystopian future
Sure.
that might happen if people start putting money on everything.
Mhm.
So, I hope we're not headed there. So
I think a model that we might start seeing more is similar to what the GitLab and Bitwarden model is, where you have a community edition and then a paid edition that has additional features. Like in Bitwarden, for example, I think you can't use a YubiKey unless you have the paid
yeah,
version. I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
And then GitLab Professional has a bunch of like CI features that most people don't really need,
Mm.
but if you want to actually access them, you got to pay them. I think it's not that much. That's like $5-10, something like that. I don't remember exactly how much it is.
Yeah, same like Sublime Text, for
Yeah,
example. Sublime Text, they asked for $99.
like
Jeez.
a year, one time. What is?
One time.
Okay, one time. I don't have an issue.
But-
Like that's just like I treat that sort of like a donation to me. Like I don't really. If you want to charge a one-time
yeah,
fee,
but
like,
$99, that's a lot.
yeah, but is it one-time fee
I think so. It's
through
a one-time
versions?
fee.
Like is it just a buy that version?
Just that version, I think. And
Uh,
the upgrade fee is much cheaper, but like $45 or something, $40 or
oh,
whatever.
here we go.
The
Yeah, I see
upgrade
the
fee
upgrade
is.
page. Wait. If you own a license,
I bought.
business by license. Wait, Sublime. Wait, is it? I'm sorry. Wait, is it 80? Hold up. No, the upgrade price is not $80, is it?
Oh, maybe. I forgot. Because I
Personal
bought it
license or-
back in.
Wait, so personal licenses are a once-off purchase and come with 3 years of updates. After 3 years, an upgrade will be required to receive further updates. Our license key is all you need. Okay. Upgrade. Upgrade fit. How much is the upgrade? Unless I'm missing something, I think the upgrade is $80. So the base price is $99. The upgrade is $80. Surely I'm missing something.
No, I think it is 80. When I saw it for 40, it was a discount.
Okay, now that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Can I share my screen with you? Or will
You
it
can
mess things up?
try. I don't know what's going to happen if you do.
Let me try. Okay. I need to hide this first. Okay.
Oh, okay. I'll just
Messed up by something?
yeah, it messed up the layout. It's fine. I'll just show it on the screen. I'll fix the layout afterwards. It's all good.
Okay. Can you see the
I can see it. Yes. It's
register?
Wait, it's a bit blurry. Can I full screen it? Yeah, there we go. Now I can see it. Cool.
Yeah, register to XeroLinux Inc. Unlimited user license.
Right.
Uh, so I'll stop sharing now.
Okay.
Anyway,
Please.
I bought that license for Arch Merge. I mean Sublime Merge
Mhm.
and Sublime Text.
What is Sublime Merge?
So $99. Well, I got it when you buy both. I think you get a discount because I got them
Yeah,
for
there was the discount there, yeah.
something around $80 for both.
Mm.
But I paid for those for XeroLinux.
Mhm.
This is company expense. Well, XeroLinux is not a company, but
Yeah.
air quotes company
Right.
expense.
Right.
Because I use Sublime Text for everything. I don't use Kate because Sublime Text just has. Well, it's lighter than Kate. Kate is a little bit heavier because it's a KDE thing. But Sublime Text is good, and Sublime Merge is amazing for Git repositories. You can just edit whatever you want to edit in the repo, just git push, git pull using. It's kind of like GitHub Desktop, but it's way lighter. It's light as a feather.
I didn't even know
It's
Sublime Merge
called
existed.
Sublime Merge is a super light, super light GitHub Desktop clone, basically. I love it. It works for my needs. I just change a few lines in a Git and push. But I bought those things, but I see the future becoming like a kind of having a lot of projects, small projects, applications, having a free because Sublime Text you can use it unlimited for free. There's no like catches or anything. But you'll be nagged with if you save a lot, if you have an open session and you save over 50 times on the same set in the same session, you get nagged with this. Oh, remember, this is a not a free product. Please pay whatever. I got annoyed by that, so I bought the license because I save a lot. I save over 1,000 times per session because I'm a distro maintainer. So yeah, things will take that route because they're allowed to. Like I'm doing, for example, able to keep the project afloat. I needed to find a way to monetize the project, so I'm monetizing the ISOs. But still, they can build them.
Yeah.
The number of people who build those spins versus the amount of people who are donating to get the ISOs is higher. So there's less people donating for the ISOs than there are people just building it, and which is good for me. It tells me that they are willing to learn, willing to go outside the box. So, but that's not helping the project survive. That's a two-sided, two-bladed, two sides to every whatever.
I don't know what metaphor you're going with there.
Yeah, I got stuck
two sides
in
the
but
same
anyway.
coin? I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Oh my god, my Fostodon is blowing up. Anyway, it's like we say it in Arabic, سلاح ذو حدين. So I don't know how to say it in English. But anyway, once on one side it's helping users learn while they're building it, and on the other side it's not helping the project survive.
Right.
Because there's no way to monetize. So even if I have a merch store, I cannot buy my own merch to be able to advertise it, to be able to sell it. So I have a merch store, but I cannot because the cap, if I want to buy the cap, I'm the creator. The price on the end user is $25, but for me it's like $17.
Right.
If I get it because I'm the creator. So I can order it, but if it arrives here, I have to pay $78.
So what?
Yeah.
Is that
welcome to my life?
Import taxes? What is that about?
There's the import tax and there's the clearance fee. The import tax is 15%, and then there's 40% clearance fees. So that's 55% on top.
What?
Yeah, welcome to Lebanon, my friend.
Okay.
This watch on the website was $160. When it landed in Lebanon, I had to pay $220. So
here's an idea for you, okay? Here's an idea.
Move away from Lebanon.
Yes, that's an idea. Now here's a easier idea. Get a generic cap, okay? and put like a sticker of the XeroLinux logo on there and say you can get a less terrible version of this hat on the store.
That's a good idea. Why not? There's a T-shirt too. I will stick a bigger sticker on it. But yeah, I'm working on that. I'm traveling soon, so maybe I'll order them to where I'm traveling to. So bring them back with me. I'm going to Greece, so.
Oh, nice.
Greece is only an hour away from here.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Anyway, by flight.
Yeah.
If I want, but I prefer to go by boat. By boat, it will take 2 weeks. I prefer boats. I hate flying. But yeah, so at the end of the day, people are allowed to monetize their projects.
Yeah.
The GPL v3 license does not disallow that. But out of the goodness of my heart, I didn't charge for the code. The code is there. You can use it. It's for free. But if you're not willing to use it, you have to donate to get the ISO. So, and people are less buying because I had to increase the price because it was $5 before. Now it's 10 because of the situation here. People should understand that my country is not getting better; it's getting worse. So, like for example, now my connection is in the yellow. It has never been in the yellow on Discord. This is the first time I see it in the yellow.
Look,
so internet connection is getting worse.
You're probably connecting to the Sydney server, so maybe there's also that. I don't know.
Maybe. My ISP has been having issues where I cannot run Pacman SYU.
That's a problem.
After a lot of research, I discovered where the problem is coming from.
Is it inconsistent?
That ISS, I have 2 ISPs. I have this one I'm using right now, which is the good one. And I have a worse one that I use for redundancy.
Right.
You know how much we pay for internet over here?
It's either gonna be really low or insanely high.
Count my fingers.
Yeah, 2.
$2.
Okay, sure.
But what do we get? 8 megabits down.
That's usable. That's not. That's really, for $2, like that's good.
But the other ISP, it's called IDM, Inco Data Management. 2 companies merged into one. Basically, they're all resellers.
Right.
The main ISP is called Ojero. Everybody resells from the main one.
Right.
They have different packages, different whatever. But anyway, IDM, if I run sudo pacman SYU or my alias, which is update, I get GPGME no data error.
Okay.
If you look that up, but you have to dig to find the exact reason why. You will find on Arch a lot of fixes. None of them work because the issue is not from Arch; it's from the ISP itself. Their clock is off by 1 minute on the ISP server side. Is off by 1 minute, and that's enough for Pacman to go in a loop.
That means That means they had to have manually set the time.
No, they don't use NTP or whatever. Okay, our ISP doesn't even know what Linux is. They call it Linux.
Okay.
When I called them to ask about, because when I reached to that point, I called them and told them I run Linux. And when I update it, the time needs to be perfect in sync with the central time. The guy was like, "You're running what? Linux, Lunus, Lanash?" I was like, "No, Linux." He was like, "What's that?" I was like, "Okay, you don't know what Linux is." He was like, "Sir, install macOS or Windows like normal people, then call us back." At this point, I was like, it's a lost cause. So I will use the ISP that works to update and call it a day. The reason I don't use, the reason the other ISP I don't use much is because the upload speed is 128 kilobytes per second.
Wow, now that's a speed. That's impressive.
When I want to upload an ISO of XeroLinux, it takes 14 hours. we don't have power for 14 hours to be able to upload the ISO.
Mm-hmm.
So on the other ISP that I use, that is kind of slow, but the upload speed is 8 to 16 megabits up. So it takes me 20 minutes to upload the ISO.
Wait, it's higher than your download?
Yeah, the upload is higher than the download.
Okay, sure.
That's a weird ratio, but because this ISP, the ISP I'm talking about, is black market ISP. So I don't know where they're getting their internet from.
They're just hooking into someone else's cables.
Some people say he's getting his internet via satellite from Cyprus. I don't know. But hey, as long as it's better than the other one, why not?
Yeah.
On the download speed, not great. On the other ISP that doesn't work for updates, I get a download of 16, but an upload of 0.5. On this one, I get a download of 8, but an upload of 16. So it's opposite. One has the correct ratio, the correct way ratio. The other one has the reverse. So
okay, sure.
It's we have it weird over here. So it's Lebanon. Hey. But on the bright side, I was playing Zonotic with some friends.
Right.
And Zonotic was running at 120 frames per second on the Steam Deck on XeroLinux.
Zonotic runs at 100. Zonotic runs great at everything. Like, that's great. I love Zonotic.
We were playing Zonotic, and they noticed that I had a better ping than they did. Guess we're closer to the servers?
Yeah, must have been. I guess it would have been like a European server of some sort.
I don't know, but they always had the delay. And on Matt's podcast, we're always out of sync when we do the claps. I guess my latency is better than Zany's because he's always out of sync. He's always 5 seconds, 20 seconds behind. So internet in Lebanon has a good ping, but a bad download upload crap. So people have to be patient when I'm uploading an ISO because sometimes it says, okay, 24 minutes remaining. I go for 15 minutes, come back, 4 hours remaining. I'm like, okay. And I upload to, and it's not only my connection, I upload to SourceForge. So there's SourceForge.
Right.
But we're working on an idea right now to host our ISOs on our server with a download counter. We have somebody working on the back end for a download counter because I cannot live without a download counter. I need to know how many people are downloading XeroLinux. So until we got that sorted, it's going to stay on SourceForge. But hey, and the last thing I want to ask you,
yes.
I want to ask you something. With the whole change that's happening in Linux, there's a lot of shifts happening. Like Grub is changing the way it's handling things, requiring different additional kernel parameters. With Python now working differently, requiring a virtual environment. The whole shift, the paradigm shift, like in packages like that.
Okay.
I'm seeing Linux is becoming a little bit more difficult for regular users to use. It's I'm not talking about the Mint and Ubuntu's of the world. I'm talking about the Fedoras and because Fedora is kind of rolling, and more and more distributions are using the Immutable file system, and more distributions are using the Blend OS and Vanilla OS style of having catering to everyone kind of scenario, using DistroBox and everything. Because to me, Zany said on Matt's podcast, if you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one.
For sure.
So, do you think that's true? And do you think that's a good something positive that's happening? All the Immutable and the complications that are happening in different distros, adding more complexity.
I think the Immutable system is an interesting model. I think the issue that we're seeing is it's often being sort of directed towards those beginner users. And if you only live within that Immutable environment and the system as it is perfectly fine for you. Like, you just need like you want to set it up for a family member who just uses a web browser. They just check their emails, check Facebook. A system like that, no issue whatsoever. I think the real issue happens when you are somewhat technical and you want to start sort of exploring your system, because a lot of the material you'll see online is based around not having an immutable system. Like if you look up any sort of tutorial for Fedora, it's going to be assuming regular Fedora. If you look up a tutorial for Arch, it's going to be assuming regular Arch and not BlendOS with Ubuntu, Vanilla OS, things like that. So a lot of that material just basically has to be thrown out if you're going to be using an immutable system. Now, I think with an immutable system, they don't necessarily...
My iPhone just... Because it's overheating due to the heat.
Oh.
Sorry, I lost what you said earlier. Is my camera showing? Or...
No, camera's not showing, no. We're back now. Okay, cool. Where did you stop hearing me at?
Before you started talking. Teti? I cannot reply to you, Teti.
Wait, just before I started saying anything?
Yeah, you started saying something and then...
Okay. The government doesn't want you to hear me. So, basically, I was saying that immutable systems are being generally directed towards a fairly beginner audience. This is fine if you just, use a browser.
I find it wrong.
Eh?
I find it kind of wrong to say they're beginner user friendly.
No, what I'm saying is that they're being directed towards beginner users, not necessarily they are. If you're someone who just lives in a browser and doesn't ever leave it, it's perfectly fine. The problem is someone who is a beginner user who also wants to start getting more involved in their system and start digging around with what's going on. That's where it becomes a really big problem. Because a lot of the material you have out there is going to be based around a system that isn't immutable. Like, if you look up something on the Fedora wiki, it's going to be about regular Fedora. You look up a Fedora tutorial or an Ubuntu tutorial or Arch tutorial, it's not going to be assuming the immutable variant, it's going to be assuming a non-immutable one, and all of that material is basically useless then.
Yeah, but if... a regular user, a beginner user, tries to use immutable file system without knowing what immutable file systems are, and containerization is, they're going to have a bad time. Don't tell beginner users that this is for you, this is for you, this is for you, because they're gonna. We keep saying that immutable file systems, it's very hard to break them. No, they're easy to break them, because I broke SteamOS desktop mode multiple times, even though it is an immutable file system, because I started installing regular packages without knowing that I cannot, and without understanding the real aspect of
you know enough to be dangerous with an immutable system. I think the difference is someone is someone a beginner user who's trying to learn Linux, or are they someone who you've sort of you've just taken their a lot of people like to take their family's computers and install Linux on it. Like, in that case, that person was never going to try to start installing packages, but you know enough about your system to be able to damage it.
Well, not really. I used it from a end user perspective. Like, I started installing regular packages.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you're someone who's treating it like a regular Linux system.
Yeah. So I installed native binaries and ended up breaking the system.
Yeah.
So that's what an end user is going to end up doing. And so they can break an immutable file system. Well, not really break it, but just break the desktop. Because after an update, an image update, because this is how immutable file systems work, you got root A, root B, and how they reverse. They're going to end up, after a major upgrade, an image upgrade, everything I did to my system is gone. I don't have my dock, my menu, my little icons, my beautiful Hannah Montana stuff on the desktop. What happened? Well, yeah. Immutable file system is not for everyone.
I think one place that can really start to address this is we need tooling to be able to better and more easily generate images. Like, this is something that Ublu's trying to do with, like, better documentation on how to, like, make your own custom images. But you need something to be as simple as a software store. Like, you click, I want this software, this software, and this software, it makes a new image, and then it just boots into that. That's what we need to make it really viable.
Or disable the ability to install native packages that go into the system. Just enable Flatpaks.
When we have Flatpaks that are wide enough, available wide enough to make that viable, yes. And I think with...
That's a problem.
Yeah. And I think also you can alleviate the problem with also, like, making wrappers around DistroBox, like Vanilla OS has. But it needs to be, like, as obvious to use as something... Or even just replacing the system package manager, to be honest. Like, replacing apt with this other system.
Yeah. But here's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing and matching package managers on the same system. I see it kind of dangerous. Because if you give Debian users, like Vanilla OS, access to the AUR.
Mm-hmm.
Although you're doing it in a container, but it's still using your home directory, and it's still using your host OS. So if you mess things up, you're gonna mess things up bad. So because not everybody is following, not everyone is following the XDG portals philosophy. Still end up with things outside the config.
Yeah, but even so, what sort of damage are you really going to do in that case? It's just you're gonna have some files floating around.
A lot of files floating around, and I don't know. It's to me, it's kind of weird to. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done. It shouldn't be set for beginner users. That's all.
No, I think that's the case. I think that it's not a great idea to direct them towards beginner users, even though it seems at the face of it like that's where that's who should be using it. It's
because they treat it as unbreakable.
Yeah.
It's not everything can break. Everything is breakable. It's not this whole stigma saying, "Oh, immutable file systems unbreakable. They're virtually unbreakable. No one can break them, even if you tried. My grandma cannot break it." I'm like, if she tries hard enough, she's gonna break it.
Well, I'm sure your grandma can't break it. She doesn't know what she needs to run to break it. Like, as I was saying before, if you are someone who just lives... If you give this to someone who their entire reason for using a computer is checking their emails and using a web browser, that person, like, they're not going to notice if they're on Immutable, if they're on...
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. If they have the browser there, it's going to be the exact same experience.
Yeah, well, what I'm talking about an end user, I'm talking about the end users that we have today that mess around with their system a lot. They change the thing here, the config here, the config there, and a lot of beginner users. There's this idea behind Linux that I don't know where they get it from, because it's the opposite that's being said in the Linux realm. Is Linux can run on a potato laptop. Yes, Linux hardware support for legacy hardware is better than Windows, that's for sure. It doesn't support each and every hardware that exists.
Right.
Hardware support, like when it comes to recent devices, newer devices, it's flipped on its head. It's Windows that supports it versus Linux. There's a lot of users, new users, that buy a laptop just like that.
Yeah.
Without thinking about it. They just buy it because either it's cheap or it's exactly what they want, whatever the reason might be. And then they think about Linux. And they try to install Linux and they say, "Oh, Linux doesn't work on my laptop. Linux is shit. I'll go back to Windows." So
I've heard these stories before, but I've never actually experienced it myself. Like, all of my case of installing Linux on a laptop, maybe I've just been lucky. But, like, it's been fine for me.
You consider yourself lucky, like I was with my desktop. I had my desktop for a couple of years before I started using Linux, and so far, hardware support perfect, minus
I think
Wayland.
When you're dealing with buying hardware, like, especially laptops get weird because of Wi-Fi cards, and there are some that are, especially on the cheaper models, where they're still a bit weird. But with desktop hardware, I think your best bet is just don't buy current generation. If you just buy the generation behind, it's always going to be fine.
That is, and don't buy questionable brands.
Yeah.
Like Flinklinks and Compinks and Cinejinks and Shoe Top or like PSX1 kind of laptops from Alibaba, yeah, those they will have no support.
Yeah.
Like there's a user on my Discord currently that's having issues with his camera webcam
Mhm.
on his laptop because his laptop is a Indian manufactured brand,
Mhm.
cheap for them, it's cheaper for them to buy. It's got a lot of neat features like boost thing, fingerprint sensor, and whatever. I forgot the exact brand, but
Mhm.
he's having an issue with his camera being an unsupported camera by the kernel.
Uh-huh.
He requires. I'll tell you what the model is.
Yeah, most
Let me
cameras
check.
should just show up as like a USB webcam and should just be fine, but what the hell's this thing
Yes,
doing?
except his is a proprietary.
Of course it
Let
is.
me tell you. Where's Sacer? I'll tell you what his model is. Where is he?
Not gonna find it now, are you?
Found it.
Oh, there
For
you
some
go.
reason, my webcam is not being recognized. No video device, dev video 0 found. Any suggestions? Unplug, replug. Have been looking to find a solution. Some kind of okay, maybe proprietary software, and
Uh-huh.
then MIPI. My webcam is of type MIPI.
Oh.
MIPI.
Oh.
MIPI.
Okay.
And a lot more people with this type of webcam have been having a hard time, especially the newer models.
Whoa.
MIPI.
Yes, I'm well aware.
This is the one that they pulled from the kernel, right?
This is the one.
The Intel one?
Yes, that's what it is. It's Intel's stupid
That's the
system.
Intel one.
They've moved all the firmware out of the kernel and put it on the. Sorry, they've
They
moved
removed
the
the AUR.
kernel
No,
out
they
of the
removed it even from
hardware
the
and put it
AUR.
on in the kernel. That's the problem. But it doesn't work
What?
properly. I think they don't use the hardware the existing
Blobs.
camera stack that is already there for Linux, like the V4 whatever it's called, the camera stack that's already there for Linux. Instead, they do their own thing. And
This is
the firmware they have for it just doesn't work consistently on Linux. It's like very specific
okay.
kernel versions, and you need to patch a kernel. It's just a nightmare.
Okay, that's the one then. I told him to use his phone with Droid
Yeah,
Cam like I am
just
right
do
now.
that.
Except if it's hot over 30 degrees, don't use that because it's been disconnecting continuously.
Do you use
and for some,
do you use that over Wi-Fi? Or do you have it like plugged in, like to
no,
your
no, it's
PC?
connected, hard connected,
Okay.
USB. It's the USB port that's overheating because of the and my computer is in the desk, not outside. Although I have the side panel off,
Yeah.
but it's still overheating. The USB port is overheating. I don't know. It's like 30 degrees right now, and it's only 11:43. So, but the whole Linux thing right now, I'm having difficulty communicating with people. Communication is a lot harder these days. That's all I'm saying. I'm not bashing on anyone. Just communication is really broken. You try to communicate with developers these days, they either don't reply, don't give you the time of the day, or because they're busy, and I understand. And tell me you're busy. Don't just completely ignore me. And when you try to work together, you work to, you start the journey and then they quit in the middle of it.
Right.
They're like, yeah, after thinking about it, yeah, it's not interesting, and they just leave you hanging. Not really good. Leave a good impression, people. That's my whole argument. I'm still happy on Linux, and I will keep using Linux for the foreseeable future. Only I needed to send out a message that XeroLinux is here, but for how long? Question mark. Because when life takes over, because it's not paying the bills, as
Right.
we all know, it's not paying the bills, and life requires you to pay the bills. So when I find a job, it'll be now it's what occupies my days 24/7. But when I find a job, a real job, and real life takes over again, XeroLinux will be on the shelf. And being just maintained every now and again, not having consistent releases and whatnot. Don't be surprised when that happens. Distros come and go. There, if you don't like the frequency at which the new frequency of XeroLinux releases, you can move to another distro.
Mm-hmm.
So why people go up in arms when a distro dies when there's a million other distros that do similar stuff? Because at the end of the day, distros are not really distros. It's just a new coat of paint and new methods of doing the same thing.
I've said it before, and it's people took it as like me hating on like all of these
No.
distros. A lot
You're
of
just fucking reality.
a lot of distros out there are glorified post-install scripts. Like
Yes.
it's a post-install script in the form of an ISO, and that's fine. Like that's okay. But
Yeah,
like
that's someone did say, why don't you make a post-install script that users can run after installing Linux? Arch Linux plus KDE. They can just run. That's what I did, but not complete, just to get more users to use XeroLinux.
Mm-hmm.
But there's multiple ways of creating a so-called distro.
Mm-hmm.
I just chose the ISO way because it's easy to flash on a USB
it's
drive
way to
and
install it,
and next you got it installed. Because at the end of the day, if you install it via an ISO or post-install script, you might start having the same issues.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not gonna remove the issues. Don't be surprised if a distro dies. Move on.
Mm-hmm.
There's something called moving on. But for now, XeroLinux is here to stay. I don't know when I'm gonna find a job. It's been 3 years, so hey, maybe another 3 years. I won't be able to pay the bills for another 3 years. Who knows? But other than that, thank you for all the people who have shown love to XeroLinux. There's a lot of people. Like I uploaded an ISO on the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
I already have 3,000 downloads on that.
Wow.
So it's doing good. It's still doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to all the people, and thank you for. I want to thank you for keeping the spirit alive, and when it comes to Linux, because your videos are amazing. Just
Thank you.
the amount of information that we get from your videos is overwhelming sometimes, and I love the the jokes you throw from now and again, especially when you made the Red Hat stuff, and the latest video you did when you talked about the zip domain .zip domain.
Yeah.
That was amazing. That was just. I like that video.
The zip domain stuff is so stupid.
Nobody's talking about it. Why? Why are you the only one of the very few who are talking about it?
I don't know. There's a couple.
It's there. It's malicious. We need awareness about it.
Look, right now I care more about people talking about the web environment integrity stuff. Like the zip domain stuff, like that's a problem. But like that's an easy to ignore problem. The web environment integrity stuff, like that's an actual serious problem that is going to hurt the open web.
Oh, the DRM, yes.
Yeah.
What people are labeling as a web DRM. Because, I recently did a uBlock origin test.
Mm-hmm.
It's still working.
Well, yeah.
It's
nothing been implemented just yet. It's currently in prototyping stage.
I visited YouTube, the homepage of YouTube. 1.9K ads blocked on the homepage. I'm not even watching a video.
Yep.
On the YouTube homepage, 1.9K, almost 2,000 ads blocked. Where? What?
It's not just ads, it's also just scripts they're running in the background, things like that.
Oh my god, it's hilarious. So I'm imagining a future with no ad blockers and people getting bombarded with these autoplay videos. You go to news websites, click here to read more. You click here, you get redirected to some questionable website. And the problem with news websites, serious news websites like CNN and BBC or whatever, they have ads. They don't control where they lead. So some of the ads show you a lawnmower. Okay, let's say a lawnmower.
Sure.
You click on that ad, it sends you to an X-rated website. Whatever reason. They don't control it. Yes, yet it floods.
Mhm.
I give you an example. I did
Okay.
a study also how big websites are going, because
Right.
if the web continues going the way it's going, it's a dysfunctional web. Because I loaded bbc.co.uk and CNN and our local news channel called LBCI News.
Okay.
bbc.co.uk 170 megabytes to load before it loads the whole website. Because Vivaldi shows you the size of the website in the address bar. I loaded CNN 240 megabytes before it loads. I loaded the Lebanese news website 290 megabytes, close to 300 megabytes to load the homepage.
300 megabytes to load a web page.
What the hell's going on here?
There's no.
Are we?
That number can't. Surely that number isn't correct.
It is correct. I even downloaded the homepage using HTTrack on Windows. There's an app called HTTrack that downloads the website.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it's called. Source the website or whatever. Download the whole homepage.
Sure.
You tell it to stick to the homepage and download the homepage. All the code is JavaScript ads. JavaScript code.
Well, that makes
JavaScript
sense.
JavaScript. Like there was a file on the Lebanese LBCI News. There was one file that was 80 megabytes in size, JS file. What the hell is this web going to? Are we? And I wonder why I kept wondering why my quota is being reached so fast.
What do you?
Because I have a 20 gig a day quota.
What do you even
I'm like,
do with 80 megabytes of JavaScript?
You open it. You know how when you open an encrypted JavaScript, you have this gibberish.
Yeah, the minified JavaScript. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what what it contains. 80 megabytes of this.
Well,
even Kate tells me I cannot load the entire file. Do you want to try to load the entire file?
Keep in mind, minifying the file is removing the excess things. If that's 80 megabytes minified, like, that's going to be closer to 100 meg if you get rid of that.
Like, I scrolled, and Kate wasn't able to load the entire file.
Mm-hmm.
It capped out at 20,000 lines.
Mm-hmm.
So if minified is 20,000 lines, I can't imagine the unminified one, how long it is. But that's the modern web.
Mm-hmm.
That's the modern web. What I'm saying is the websites serve you more ads than actual content.
Yeah.
They care about the ads than the content. Because I go to news websites to read, and here's the news articles on LBCI Lebanon. You click on the news, the title.
Mm-hmm.
You expect a whole article like BBC or CNN.
Mm-hmm.
It's this much of ads. The paragraph is like 6 lines, and more ads. You have to scroll for like 5 seconds to reach the end of the page, but the whole article is 6 lines. So I clicked and I got bombarded with ads for 6 lines.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, what the hell's going on with the web? And I do agree that the modern web needs quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
But not that kind of quarantine, not DRMs.
Mm-hmm.
DRMs are not the solution. But because DRMs, what are they doing? They're still serving you the shit ads, and just they will be doing a handshake with your system and your browser to see if your browser is supported and your system is supported.
Mm-hmm.
What? We don't need that. We need to be allowed to use whatever browser, on whatever system we want.
Absolutely.
That whole Google thing, I think Google is trying to stop users from using questionable browsers,
Mm-hmm.
like browsers that are user created.
Mm-hmm.
They want users to use either Chrome. They want to defend their own products.
Sure.
Like official Chromium forks, official Chrome. So it's like kind of like Edge.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want you to use Edge no matter what on a system. Like
they very aggressively push Edge on Windows.
Yeah, like Chris Titus Tech right now, he's trying to remove Edge from Windows. Mm-hmm. He keeps failing because Microsoft is making it harder and harder and harder and harder to remove.
Mm-hmm.
So I keep going to his Twitch streams and telling him, stop trying. Windows is always going to fight you for that. They're fighting for supremacy. So with that being said, it was a great stream today. I was like, I wasn't screaming and yelling like before, and because I did that many times, and it doesn't matter how much you scream and yell, nobody's gonna hear better. Just- it's just at the end of the day, Linux is what it is. It will grow at its own pace. There will, as with everything, there will be people that will hinder its growth. Unfortunately, but I will forever use Linux no matter what. Even if XeroLinux dies, I'll still be using XeroLinux. I'll keep maintaining it for my own self. But just people, when you want to use something on Linux, know what you're using. You're new to Linux, don't jump directly into Archbase. Go slowly.
It's a bad idea.
Yeah, we all did it. So we're talking from experience here.
Yeah.
Take it from these two guys, those two nerds, an old guy and a young guy, 2 generations who did it. Don't do it. Go to. I would highly recommend Mint XFCE, not Cinnamon. XFCE because you got more flexibility on XFCE. On Cinnamon, it's easy to use, but it really gets boring real fast. With XFCE, it keeps moving. Not the updates. I'm saying
definitely not the updates.
Not the updates. It doesn't receive any updates. Just it's more fun to use.
Sure.
And
you use that Windows 95 theme.
Yeah, why not? You got flexibility with more flexibility with XFCE. Just go there first, learn about Linux, and if you want to go into Arch, you have virtual machines. Just flash Arch on the virtual machine, mess with it, learn how it works, start reading the wiki, and then because Arch is a base that you shape your way, and they're not responsible if what you flash on your system. They're not responsible if you break your system. You have to. They have a wiki. Just you will find your way around. Each hardware manufacturer, if you're lucky, if they support Linux, they will have their own guide on how to get things running on Arch. So don't jump directly into Arch. And people will find it weird when I say, don't use XeroLinux if you don't know Linux. Yeah, because it's Arch. I am aware that I used a difficult base, a very moving, and that requires a lot of involvement to be very involved in the system to use it. So I don't want you to sink before you can swim. If I tell you, oh, you're a beginner, use XeroLinux. Yeah, it's like me telling you, you don't know how to swim, I throw you in the deep end. No, I'm not that kind of guy. I'm just warning people.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, some people float. Yeah,
I definitely don't.
Me neither. So with that being said, just enjoy Linux if you want to use something other than Windows, and it's not necessary to switch to Linux if you're happy on Windows. I'm not that kind of person that's going to. I'm not that kind of zealot that will tell you, oh, you're using Windows? Ew, shame on you. No, use what works for you. If
Absolutely.
Windows works perfectly for you, because I got users on my server, Linux server, who are using Windows. They will not switch to Linux.
Okay.
They will use Linux in a VM, but they will not switch to it. So you are allowed to use whatever works for you. It's not wrong to stick to Windows. Sometimes, for me, for example, I didn't have to restore Windows since 2017 because it works. Because I know how to use Windows. I will use this argument. An operating system is only as good as the users behind it. Sometimes, very rarely, this saying is wrong, but very rarely. Because I swear to God, I meet a lot of users who have been using Windows without an issue, not a single issue, for like 15, 20 years. I have a person who's
I certainly don't know those people. I'm not one of those people. Definitely not.
I would show. I would link you to a thread on my forum.
Okay.
There's a guy. He's very old. He's in his 70s, I think. He's got computers all the way from Windows 3.11 all the way to Windows 10. The reason he's using Windows 10 is 1 because he cannot browse the internet on any of his other retro PCs because of the modern web. But the computer he uses on a daily basis for his tinkering and whatever is a Windows XP laptop. So there are people like that, but just use whatever works for you. Don't let people like zealots try to push you towards something you cannot use or don't want to use.
Mhm.
You are your own individual. Don't let anyone sway you otherwise. Use whatever works. Okay, I do agree with the ideology that a closed source shouldn't be used. Use use open source software as much as you can. Well,
Mhm.
how about I tell you that even if you're using Windows, these days Windows is receiving more and more open source applications.
Yeah.
You got Files that replaces Explorer. It's open source.
Is that open source?
Yeah, Files. It's called Files. It replaces Explorer. It's really neat.
Huh.
It's got effects, theming, tabs. You can update it separately from the system.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's a free open source software. There's Chris Titus Text debloater script. It's free open source.
Mhm.
There's other file explorers that are free open source. You got widget stuff, free open source. Windows is seeing a lot of free open source love today. So if you like and you're a free open source zealot, you can be on Windows. Okay, the operating system itself is not free open source, but if you use it correctly, it will be very stable. On my system, I haven't needed to restore Windows for a long time. I upgraded from 7 to 8 to 8.1 to 10 to 11 using the same license key. It worked. So use whatever is best for you. Don't let zealots sway you otherwise, and use free open source tools whenever you can. Just at the base, use the operating system where you feel more comfortable. That's it. That's my message to the world. I just don't like this ideology of, oh, you should be using Linux. Jump to Linux. If you're using Windows, you are an idiot. That's kind of reactions I don't like when I see. And I have nothing to say. I just leave them be whoever they want to be.
Look, they might be an idiot, but they're not an idiot for that reason.
They're not idiots, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
They are who they are. They are who they are. They just don't mind them. I want to say another thing. I said today is, it's a message to distro maintainers, other distro maintainers. This time I have a message for distro maintainers. Maintaining a distro should not be allowed to take over one's life. We do it for fun. Don't let anyone bully you to do more than you can unless you are willing to. I myself know that XeroLinux will not live forever. Nothing does. Plus, there are plenty of distros out there to try. If one dies, more will come. Linux is an ever-evolving platform. Enjoy maintaining your distro for as long as you while you can. Don't force it to take over your life. Because there's a lot of distro maintainers out there. They complain that it's taking over their lives and they're miserable. No, don't let it do that. Just keep doing it as long as it's fun. More distros will come when yours dies. So don't worry about that. Unless you want to make a living out of it, that's a different story.
Sure.
And it becomes a job and it becomes a company. You can form a company from a distro. At this point, it's a completely different perspective. But as long as you're doing it like I am for fun, keep it fun. Don't let other like for me, I got people a lot of people who influenced me, allowed them to influence me and influence the vision of XeroLinux, and I started feeling guilty and depressed for not including their because they're trying to help, and I appreciate that, and I really appreciate that they're trying to help the project grow. But there are things that I can implement, other things I cannot. And if I allow you to do it yourselves, if I don't understand it myself, if you go because you're just a passing contributor, if you go and I end up with your project, I have to keep maintaining it. And if I don't understand it, how am I supposed to maintain it? So I'm like very weary on what things I include in XeroLinux. You have to put like limitations, virtual limitations to what you include and what you don't include. Like I included a lot of things before that I didn't understand, and then the contributor just disappeared, and now I don't know what to do with them. I'm
Right.
stuck with something that works so far, but if I want to change something, I can't
Mhm.
because the contributor just disappeared. So be careful who you accept into your family, and be willing to have an open mind. Have an open mind because I had a closed mind and I suffered for it. I'm just giving you my experience. If you're not willing to learn, just don't maintain a distro. Don't maintain a distro. Yeah, there's a lot of people who, okay, I'm maintaining a distro. I have a distro, but it's broken. Are you willing to learn to fix it? No, I need somebody to do it for me. No, you shouldn't be maintaining a distro. So I'm just giving you my experience for the experience I got for the 2.5 years that I've been maintaining XeroLinux. You
Mhm.
either take it or leave it. I'm just giving you my experience. So with that being said, thank you, Brody. You're always awesome. You're a good listener. And
As I said, the more that you speak, the less that I have to speak. I don't know how long you just went on a rant for there, but it's gonna be at least like 5-10 minutes.
sorry,
So
I
good.
needed to say that. But now I'm going to say peace, and you do your closing.
Let the people know where they can find your stuff before we do that.
Okay, you can find XeroLinux at xerolinux.xyz. I'm on Fostodon at XeroLinux. I changed from at TechZero, now it's at XeroLinux,
Mhm.
because it's all unified now. And I'm no longer on social privately because I hate social.
Fair enough.
Why did Twitter become a porn site? I don't know.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Uh, yeah,
Well, look, they were
I woke
already a
up
porn
one.
site. Now they've just accepted their fate.
Yeah, because I woke up one morning and I saw X on my phone. Now, what videos are called X videos? Wow, tell that to your mom or dad. Uh, but anyway, I'm on Fostodon at XeroLinux. I'm on Discord
Mhm.
at Dark Zero.
Mhm.
Uh, I didn't want to change it to XeroLinux, that one,
Fair enough.
because I use it for everything. Uh, and that's it. And on YouTube, you can find us on YouTube at XeroLinux if you want to watch older videos, because newer ones will be very few and
Mhm.
far between.
Okay,
That's it.
easy. Yeah, main channel is actually gaming channel. The gaming channel, Brody on Games. I stream there twice a week. Right now I probably have finished Black Mesa, so I'm probably playing Portal with Ren. Also, I'm going through Final Fantasy 16. The main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. I have no idea what'll be out by then. Probably another Red Hat video. I really hope not, but, you know, judging by the direction we've been going. Or maybe there'll be some more, like, foster armor stuff. I don't know. We'll see what happens. This channel, if you're watching the audio version, you can find the video version on YouTube at Tech Over Tea. And if you want to find the audio version, any podcast platform, there is an RSS feed. Stick it in your favorite app. I like AntennaPod. It's great. So, give me the final word, preferably less than 5 minutes long.
Uh, Peace and long life to all Linux users.
Yes. See you guys later.